As he fumbled back to his feet, a darkness surrounded him, for the night had come. With it was its companion the moon, which shone brightly. Not knowing what had happened, he checked himself for any damages. There were none. No sign of any harm whatsoever. He looked ahead of him, but his eyes only met a veil of black, a shade of night he had never seen before. Around him he heard the noise of trees creaking. They sounded old and tired of standing. In the distance an owl hooted, and a slight breeze met his face as it blew through the grass. Looking around, he thought he spotted a building nearby. He took a step and felt as if the forest was bearing down on him, looming over, watching. Each step he took, he felt the silent judgment, and couldn't help but feel as if many eyes were watching from a distance. The air was chilled, and the wind began to pick up. A shiver went down his spine. Drawing nearer to his objective, he discovered he was correct. It was a building, old, with many cracks about the walls. The insides were tiled, and the smell of a latrine came from the nearby open door. A twig snapped behind him, and he shuddered. He looked behind him, and his eyes met yet again the beckoning void, a lightless fog covering the air. He squinted, and thought for a moment he could see something. Upon the darkness, a figure rose, as if the fog were a part of it. It was tall and menacing. It loomed over at an odd angle, appearing to lean forward. He guessed it to stand around 9 foot tall. Its limbs were unordinarily long, arms longer than a yardstick. From its back protruded what appeared to be branches. They were black and twisted about each other and moved on their own accord, like a group of tentacles writhing about each other, bathing in the dark. The entirety of the body was black from what he could tell, but what was most recognizable was the face. There was none. It was a white canvas, completely blank, like a common mannequin with even less noticeable features. The figure did nothing but stand there, facing him as if watching. Squinting even more, he noticed the figure once in front of him was now gone, faded away into the deepening night. The wind rose, and the air grew colder. He now realized that the forest had now quieted itself, for no more creaks could be heard, as if the trees were intently watching, waiting. He turned back towards the restroom, and his eyes widened. His skin grew paler than it could ever have been. There, on the opposite side of the narrow hallway, stood the figure, now in plain sight amidst the white tiles. He stumbled backward, and his eyes were locked on the tall figure. Unable to scream and unable to react accordingly, he fell on his back. Reopening his eyes, he noticed there was the figure, looming over him, tall, faceless, and surrounded by the night. It was here when suddenly he woke up, laying in his bed in his comfortable apartment. He reached over and turned on the lamp. After a few moments of catching his breath, he leaned back into the bed and let out a sigh of relief. As he stretched, his arm met something on the pillow next to him, something coarser and stiffer than the sheets. Grabbing the strange object, he realized he held in his hand a piece of paper. His eyes widened with terror as they scanned the page he held. Upon the paper was a drawing, a rough drawing of a dark and tall figure looming over a fallen person. Beneath the picture was a set of 2 words, "Never leaves."